Husband won't stop texting his coworker and doesn't even bother hiding it from me anymore. Disclaimer is not always Storytime, it's on me on Instagram. 2 weeks later, I find messages from Karen on his phone. At that point, I had completely forgotten about Karen. Husband and I try to do date nights every single week. On this one occasion, we sit down at a restaurant, and his phone kept going off, pinging almost every single minute. He wouldn't turn off the sound. 7th time it rang, I decided to pick up the phone only to silence it. I mean, at this point, I have no reason to not trust him. But when I take a quick glance at the messages, it said work wife. My blood instantly began to boil. That's when he tried to take the phone from me, but I pulled it back. I opened the messages and see that they were having a conversation about me and him going to dinner, and how jealous she was that she couldn't come with him. Mind you, we're sitting in the middle of a restaurant. That's when my husband says, go ahead and read it, I don't give a shit. I look at him and I couldn't recognize him. Like, I literally could not recognize his face. He looked like a different man. He was no longer the considerate, loving husband. He was now just some other guy texting another girl. As I read through the messages, the tears started flowing down my face, and I made a scene. I told him he needed to stop texting her. Then he says, no, I like her. Why would I stop? Part 2 is up. My husband won't stop texting his coworker and doesn't even bother hiding it from me anymore. Disclaimer, this is not my story time, instead of me on Instagram. My husband got a new job about a year ago. He finally started earning a lot of money and he really loves his job. I'm a substitute teacher, so at the time, we were really broke. We were desperate for one of us to get a better job. A few weeks after he started his new job, his boss threw a party so that we could all get to know each other. And this is when I met Karen. Karen right away came up to me and tried to make me feel like she was my best friend. She started talking to me about really personal stuff right away. In other words, she was trying to let me know that I could trust her because she was telling me her deepest, darkest secrets. But I don't fall for that kind of shit easily. As the barbecue went on, I kept noticing that she would talk to my husband a lot. And my husband would reciprocate. If he was at the bar, she was at the bar. If she was trying to grab food, he was trying to grab food. I called my husband out on it and he told me that they were really close friends at work. And that she was basically his work wife. I told him he needed to stop that real quick. Otherwise, I would move in with my parents. For the rest of the barbecue, he behaved like a little lamb. Only 2 weeks later, I find messages between them. Part 2 is up. My husband won't stop texting his coworker and doesn't even bother to hide it from me. Disclaimer, is not my story time, instead of me on Instagram. That's when he told me that he liked her and why would he stop texting her. I actually had to sit there at the restaurant and explain to my 30-year-old husband why it was inappropriate for him to be texting his work wife. He said they were doing nothing wrong by texting each other. That's when I told him that if he didn't stop texting her, that he could forget about me. He said that there was nothing wrong with him having friends. I told him that friends shouldn't tell each other that they're jealous if they're going out with their wife. And he explained that it was just banter. She loves playing at being jealous. Ew. Then he said this: would you rather me hide the messages from you? My stomach sank. This man clearly does not understand that what he's doing is wrong. We've never had a problem like this before. We've been married 3 years and this has never been a thing. I got up from the restaurant and took an Uber home. Do you think he chased me? No. It wouldn't be another 4 hours until he got home. I asked him where he'd been and he told me that he was just chilling at the restaurant. For 4 hours? I asked him once again if he would stop texting her and he said no. That again, they were not doing anything wrong. But their messages were like boyfriend and girlfriend messages. Things like, what do you want for lunch this week? I miss you. I'm jealous that you're going to dinner with your wife. After he said no, I packed my overnight bag and I went to his parents' house. My parents live 2 hours from me. I told his parents everything and they went over to talk to him right away. And they were pissed. His dad even threatened him to take him out of his will. His parents have my back and told me that I could stay with them. But instead, I went home to my parents. I also just found out that Karen has a boyfriend. Should I tell her man? Or should I just divorce my husband and forget the whole thing? Whatevs. Storytime about how my grandmother predicted that I would get kidnapped when I was 14 years old. Disclaimer, is not my story time, instead of me on Instagram. My grandmother and I have always had a very close relationship. We're Mexican and my grandmother believes in ghosts and legends. In the town that we lived in, there was always a legend about girls who got kidnapped. When I turned 7 years old, my grandmother told me that I would be kidnapped when I was 14 years old. My parents and I didn't believe her. My grandmother never let me out of her sight after that. Even if I was going to go to the park and play, she would always come with me. It wasn't until I turned 14 years old that it happened. I was walking home from school and it was the first time that I was walking home by myself. Somebody was always there to pick me up, but this time no one was there. The crazy thing is that my grandmother got confused on the day. So my parents didn't think that they needed to go pick me up because they thought my grandma would. As I turned a corner, a man snatched me up and put me in his car. And he had the scariest mask on. He looked like the devil. My grandmother instantly knew that something had happened to me. She ran over to my school, but I wasn't there anymore. For 2 hours, the man drove me around in his car looking for a perfect spot. Whenever I would ask him where he was taking me, all he would say was, I'm looking for privacy. When he first took me, he tied my hands behind my back. He threw me in the back of the car, and every now and then he would turn around and grab at my clothes. He was trying to rip the clothes off of me. But every time he would try to grab my clothes, I would bite him really hard. I made him bleed several times, but this only made him angrier. We finally stopped in a supermarket parking lot. That's when he told me to stay stay quiet and he left the car. But I was more afraid of what he would do with me if I stayed than if I left. I managed to get out of the car without him seeing me. I ran for a minute before I heard him screaming behind me. Reached a highway and a woman stopped her car to help me. She took me back to my parents' house, and that's when I found out my grandmother had had a heart attack. She knew that I was kidnapped and my parents went crazy. They took me to the hospital, but I was actually okay. I went into therapy for years after that. Legend has it the man is still kidnapping girls. I drive my car every single night in the same route that he drove me. What should I do when I find him?
I walked in on my boyfriend doing the dirty with his gay best friend. That's when my boyfriend basically told me I needed to stop being a bitch to Tim. I decided to ghost my boyfriend for 2 days because I was so upset at him. But here's the thing, my boyfriend was ghosting me too. So I decided to go over to his apartment because I hadn't heard from him in 24 hours. My boyfriend had given me a key to his apartment, by the way. But before I put in the key to unlock the door, I hear moaning sounds coming from inside. I instantly knew what was happening. Quickly unlock the door and find my boyfriend getting banged on the couch by his gay best friend. It's an image I can never forget. I'm actually traumatized. They separate and my boyfriend comes running over to me. First thing out of his mouth was, "We were just experimenting, it's not a big deal." He thought I was gonna be like, "Oh, cool. I look over at Timmy and he's on the couch smiling. I couldn't help myself and I slapped my boyfriend really hard. I ran away and didn't talk to him for 2 days. He finally came over to my apartment after those 2 days and explained that it was just something experimental. And he swears that they've never done it before and that they never will again. I took him back, but I don't trust him. He says that Timmy will always be his best friend and that I shouldn't get jealous. What should I do? I walked in on my boyfriend doing the dirty with his gay best friend. My boyfriend moved in with his gay best friend 6 months ago. Here's a little backstory. My boyfriend and I have been together for almost 2 years. My boyfriend is a social butterfly. He has 1,000,001 friends. I got used to this very quickly because most of them were female and a lot of them were gay. They actually became my friends too in some cases. Early on in the relationship, I met one of his best friends. Let's call him Tim. Tim is very, very gay. And he doesn't hide the fact that he thinks my boyfriend is very attractive. I asked my boyfriend if Tim ever made him feel uncomfortable, and he said no. But here's the thing. Tim sometimes says the most outlandish things about my boyfriend. Yeah, my boyfriend is hot. He's super fit, has a great face, so Timmy loves to comment on his body all the time. On several occasions, he's made really dirty jokes about my boyfriend's butt and the things that he'd like to do to my boyfriend's butt. Every time they go out, he's always trying to get my boyfriend drunk. And when he succeeds, he always takes off his shirt. So then my boyfriend spends the rest of the night shirtless. Obviously, this bothered me, but it didn't bother me enough to ever be concerned. Boy, was I wrong. A few weeks ago, Timmy threw a party and told my boyfriend not to invite me. I got really upset, so I showed up anyway. Timmy was trying to kiss my boyfriend. Part 2 is up. I walked in on my boyfriend doing the dirty with his gay best friend. I instantly knew the only reason I didn't get invited to the party was so that Tim could try to get with my boyfriend. But here's the thing, my boyfriend had so much patience for Timmy. Even though Timmy would make such perverted jokes about my boyfriend would laugh it off and tell me it wasn't a big deal. But I knew it did make him uncomfortable. But of course, I show up to the party anyway. When I got there, I found Timmy sitting on the couch with my boyfriend. My boyfriend was clearly drunk, and Timmy was trying to kiss his neck. As soon as Timmy saw me, he got up from the couch and asked me what I was doing there. He said that it was a boys-only party. When I looked around, it actually was. There were no other women there. I told Timmy that I was going to take my boyfriend home, and he said that I was overreacting and that my boyfriend was just having fun. I walk up to my boyfriend and he is so drunk, he doesn't even recognize me. I grabbed him and got him out of there. The next day, I told my boyfriend that Timmy was trying to kiss him when he was drunk. But of course, my boyfriend defended him. And my boyfriend confessed to me that he knows Timmy has a crush on him and that he's basically his best friend out of pity. Then my boyfriend actually told me I needed to stop being a bitch to Timmy. Part 3 is up. Storytime about how my husband keeps borrowing money from me and now wants access to my bank accounts. What should I do? Disclaimer, this is not my story time, it's not on my Instagram. My husband and I have been married for 6 years. When we first got married, we were really young, so we were living with our parents. We didn't actually move out from my parents' house up until 2 years ago. In fact, I don't think we're actually adults yet. We both still act like we're teenagers. I'm 24 and he's 25. I recently got myself a really good job. He, on the other hand, has never had a really good job. He does a lot of odd jobs here and there, a lot of catering. He also models because he's extremely good looking. So now that I got myself a job, I wanted to get my own apartment. But of course, I have to include my husband because we're married. He actually ended up getting an okay job. We decided to split the rent and everything was going fine. But then he got laid off and this is when things started going bad. He started asking me for money because he wasn't getting paid anymore. Every now and then he would ask me for like $10 or he would ask me for my debit card. At first, it was just small purchases like going to the supermarket or going to Starbucks. So I gave him my card. One day I'm checking my bank account and I realized that he bought himself a $600 watch. You'll never guess what he said when I confronted him. Part 2 is up.
Story time about how my husband keeps borrowing money from me and now wants access to my bank accounts. Disclaimer is not my story time, it's on me on Instagram. That's when he threatened to divorce me because I wouldn't give him access to my checking account. He said that I was neglecting him. That's when he told me that if the tables were turned, he would be expected to give me money. And you know what? Totally true. At the same time, I can't allow him to just buy $600 watches. He then made a promise to me that he would only use the money for necessities. So for example, paying bills or anything like that. Although we already have our bills on auto pay, so I'm not sure how that would work. So I took him to the bank and I added him to my account. I know you all must think I'm so stupid right now. And you know what? I am. 2 days later after he got his debit card, I checked his bank account and he had signed up to 3 different OnlyFans accounts. That's a total of $50 a month coming out of my paycheck plus all the things that he buys on the website. I confronted him again and he told me that it was just for fun. And that because I'm at work and he's home alone, he needs something to entertain himself with. Then he told me that if he didn't have the OnlyFans accounts, he would probably end up just cheating on me. And then he asked me, what do you prefer, me watching stuff online or me actually going out and finding women? This is where I need your help. I see his point, but I'm not sure if this is like manipulation or something. He really seems so genuine and he's always doing my laundry, cooking, and cleaning up for me. Even rubs my feet when I get home from work. And I haven't told my parents about this. I think they'll hit the roof. Should I let him have access to OnlyFans and use my money? Or should I put a stop to it and risk him cheating? What should I do? Storytime about how my date asked me to pay for half of the smoothie we shared. Should I be going on the second date with this guy? Disclaimer, this is not my storytime, it's on me on Instagram. So I met this guy on Tinder, of course. We hit it off right away through text message and I thought that it was sus because he was too nice, but I decided to give him a chance. We're both really into fitness, so we decided to go on a hike. Because we live in LA and everyone does the same thing, so why not? But before the hike, he asked me if I wanted to get smoothies. I said of course because I love smoothies. I told him I didn't really want a full smoothie, so I asked him if we could share and he said yes. We got a banana peanut butter smoothie. The total came out to $8.45. In my mind, I thought he was totally happy paying for it. We drank the damn smoothie while we were hiking and I thought everything was fine. We had great conversation and the sexual tension between us, oh my god. You could literally cut through it with a knife. As we finish up the hike, he says, "Do you mind Venmoing me for half of the smoothie?" I laughed because I thought it was actually a joke. Then he says, "Why are you laughing?" And I said, "Oh, are you serious?" And he said yes. We stared at each other for about 10 seconds. So I pull out my phone and send him $4. Then he goes in for a freaking kiss. At this point, I was completely turned off though. What kind of person offers to get a smoothie and then asks me to pay for half of it? I let him kiss me for about 3 seconds because I was curious. It was a super sloppy kiss, so ew. Then he begs me to go on a second date with him. But when I told my mom and friends that he made me pay for half of the smoothie, they said not to go on the second date. But I'm really attracted to this guy. What should I do?